In this part, we will go over various use cases related to the filing stage of our application. Let's go over the use cases and discuss how do we attempt those. So here is first case. It says your client is interested in getting a patent in the shortest possible time in India. Inform him about the provisions under the Patents Act and the shortest possible time that will take for getting a patent under the Patents Act as amended. Now this is what I call a bread and butter scenario, because this is the most basic help that you can provide to your client with regards to filing an application with one or other requirements. Now here the constraint is the shortest possible time. As we go through the slide, I will help you how to write the answers for this. But before that, let's see another use case. Now the first one here says, your client has applied for a provisional patent application in India. Draw a timeline for all the important events till the date of grant of her patent application as per the Indian Patent Act. Now you know you have been provided with a scenario where a provisional application is already filed. So the timeline starts from there. Within 12 months, you need to file a regular application. From there on, publication. From there on, request for examination, and then response to FER, and then the process of grant. You need to know the steps and the timeline associated with all possible scenarios that can happen as the patent application goes through the grant. Let's look at the second one. Your client from Pune instructed you to file a provisional specification. Before filing, he wanted to know the detail. Again, same thing. So again, you will help them to understand what are the process requirements, what are the form requirements, and what are the timeline requirements. So I just wanted to warm you up with few sample cases so that you know what kind of scenarios are there in the filing stage of it. Now the question comes, how do we attempt the questions? So here it is. How do we decode the question? So in all such cases, the first thing that you need to do is understand the objective. Now, in all these pre-filing or filing stage questions, we know the objective is always to file an application. Now, where do you need to file an application? How do you need to file an application? What benefits can you avail? What provisions can you avail? Would depend upon the constraints or exact requirements which are there from the client, right? So you need to read the question to understand the objective along with the constraints and requirements. Now, as we discussed, objective could be filing. What kind of filing? It could be a provisional filing, it could be a regular filing, it could be a conventional filing, and PCT filing. Now videos are available detailing each of these concepts on this channel. Please go through them. Now you may ask, what could be the constraints and requirements? Now the constraints could be the timeline. I want to file it immediately, or I want to delay the process of filing. What do I do? Or I have a specific applicant time, MSME, startups. What kind of provisions can I use? Or constraints with regards to funds, or my requirement with respect to collaborating with other parties, or the market requirements. What kind of application do I file? What kind of timelines do I have? At this stage, we have identified the objective, taking into account the constraints and the requirements that is provided in the question itself. Now, these constraints and requirements will help you to pick a section that will drive the kind of advice that you would give to your client. So how do we write the answer? Or to say, how do we code the answer? In my view, you should always start with mentioning your understanding of the objective. So here is one way of writing it. The client wishes to the objective that you identified along with the requirements and constraints that were provided in the question. You pick a section number, or you provide the section number here for the option that you are going to suggest to the client. You can also talk about the applicant type that you have identified that can help the client to enjoy certain benefits, along with the technology-based benefits also that the Patents Act provide. Now at this stage, as you have identified the sections, you should go ahead and describe the entire process. Preferably draw a flow chart. Now here is one flow chart. Now at this stage, I would urge you to draw a flow chart on your own, describing the entire process of filing along with the filing forms and the timelines of the associated activities such as publication, examination, response to the FER that are issued, and the decision of controller. Once you do this, you will have a model answer with you, which you can use as soon as somebody asks you to describe the process of filing. You don't need to think too much about it. Now, depending upon what is asked in the question, you can start with providing details from section 2. You can also evaluate the idea as per section 3. And if the client wishes to file directly outside India, you can describe the process with regards to FFL requirements. Moving on, you can identify the requirements with respect to filing. Is it provisional, regular, or conventional? Accordingly, you can go with filing forms, provide section numbers to it. If the client has provided certain constraints, you can go for early publications or expedited examinations. For that, you need to file additional forms. From there on, you can describe the examination process and the timelines and how and when the controller comes up with this decision. While you do so, you should also provide the timelines associated with each one of this. Now, timelines could be what is the timeline from provisional to regular? If there is a requirement of post dating, how much post dating can be done? If conventional application needs to be filed, when and within what time period that conventional application can be filed? What about PCT applications? What are the timelines for filing requests for examination? Similarly, what are the timelines for responding to the FER actions? For all these questions, you need to have a model answer in terms of how do I start, what all details do I provide? So make one flowchart that provides all these details. Now it's time to apply whatever we have learned so far to few of the use cases, starting with this one. So your client, Mr. KK Rao from Hyderabad, informs you that he wishes to file an application for patent outside India and inquires about the procedure for obtaining prior permission of Government of India. Write a letter advising your client. In fact, this question has given out all the details. The question could be much interesting if they were to say the client wishes to file outside India. Advise your client. So the objective is to file application outside India. Constraint is we are not filing in India. So accordingly, we need to apply a section. So how do we attempt this question? First, mention your understanding along with the constraint. We need to file the application outside India. So what needs to be done? The client needs to obtain foreign filing license from the Government of India, from the Patent Office. So section 39 deals with FFL obtainment and the process along with it. So once you have identified the section, describe the process as per the section 39. Moving to the second use case. Now here in this case, an Indian automobile firm is doing research on a novel brake system, which could be completed in another 10 months. They approach you to get a patent in India, Europe and China. So what is the objective of this question? Of course, to file application in India, Europe and China. Did you identify some constraints here? See, the constraint is in the research will be completed in another 10 months. So either you can wait for 10 months for filing the application when you have all the details available with you, or you file a provisional application right away, encompassing the invention that you have, right? So with the constraint that they provided, you identified that the filing needs to be provisional application because that gives you the 12 months of time frame, securing your invention date, right? So you mention your understanding, mention the constraint which was there, and what are the sections that you are going to use. Then come up with that model flow chart, explaining the details, explaining the timelines with regards to every step of filing till the date of grant. And because they have talked about China and Europe, you can talk about either we directly file through conventional route within 12 months, or we take PCT route if the client wants to have more time at hand in order to evaluate the market, evaluate the invention, or gather some more funds. Fair enough? Moving on to the next one. Here they say you have filed an application with provisional specification on behalf of your client on 15/12/2007. Now, as soon as somebody says provisional specification, you should start thinking about the deadline for the regular application, which is 12 months from the date of filing the provisional application. Now, in this case, that would be December 2008. But the question continues and says that the client is not in a position to provide the total inputs to file a complete specification within prescribed time, which is 12 months, but only around 15/2/2009, which happens to be 2 more months from the allowed timeline. So the constraints are given. The constraint is that I cannot complete within the time frame. So the objective has to be, I need more time, right? So we need to think, what are the provisions in the act which can provide you extra time? The provision of post dating, section 17. So you can post date your provisional application by 2 months because that's the requirement, or 3 months if the client is happy with that. So you mention your understanding, mention the section that you are going to apply, describe the process. Here again, depending on the overall marks which are assigned to this question, you can go about explaining that model flow chart again, that once we have completed the post dating before regular filing, so at the time of regular filing, these are the forms that are required. These are the timelines for various activities that needs to be performed at the patent office. Let's go to next use case. It says your schoolmate Gopika is now a final year student at an engineering college at Chennai. She has invented something. Her engineering college has agreed to pursue a patent application for said invention. How will you explain to her the most important aspects of prosecuting a patent application in India up to grant with the relevant forms, fees and time limits? Isn't it the bread and butter scenario? You explain Gopika with the model flow chart detailing every step, all the forms and timelines required to file an application, along with what provisions of the Patent Act are helpful to Gopika. You identify the provisions of the Patent Act which could provide benefit to Gopika as the applicant or the university as the applicant. You also provide detail about the cost advantage that is provided by the Patents Act depending on the applicant type here. And go ahead with explaining the model flow chart regarding the forms and timelines for each and every activity that needs to be performed at the patent office. The next one, Ujjwal, an entrepreneur and owner of startup, has developed a cheap solar-based battery. He wishes to have a patent for the invention at the earliest. Perfect. Again, the objective is to file the application, constraint is at the earliest. And they have also mentioned startup as the word here. So there are provisions available in the Patents Act to get the benefit in terms of the cost as well as the timeline. Expedited examination can be filed, isn't it? So you start this question by describing your understanding of the fact that there is a startup, and because they would want to file get the patent at the earliest, what provisions can you take benefit of considering they are startup, right? So another section of this question says, what if Ujjwal had already filed a request for examination? The application has been awaiting examination for a long time. If he wants that application to be taken for examination immediately, what steps are required? Simple. The request for examination that was already filed needs to be converted into expedited examination by filing the relevant form and paying the applicable fee. With that, you can also mention the fact that the application needs to be published before such an examination can be taken up. So if the application is not published, you can file a request for an early publication also using the relevant forms. I hope you're getting the gist of how do we attempt such questions, right? Moving on to the next ones. Your client, Messrs. A3, a partnership firm whose partners are Amar and Akbar and Anthony, informs you that they are interested in filing an international application for a patent under PCT with the priority of their ordinary application, which is already filed on 2001. Advise your client regarding the time period. Now, again, bread butter situation. Objective is to file a PCT application. Initial timeline is given. So you know that the timeline of 12 months needs to be followed for claiming the original priority. So by 2002, forget the date, but within 12 months, you need to file the PCT application. So you start with that process, you provide the relevant forms and fee that needs to go along. And as you file the PCT application, you also need to tell them that they need to enter the national phase in any of the countries that they wish to within 31 months from the original priority date of 2001. For that matter, any priority date, 31 months from that particular priority date. So you should provide all these details. Moving to the next one, your client, Hero Cycle, address is given, informs you after 6 months from the date of filing a provisional specification in India for his interest in protecting the invention in some other countries through PCT filing. So here, the objective is again to file a PCT application. But the constraint is a provisional application was filed to start with and 6 months have elapsed. So what process can you follow? As you specify your understanding, you specify the fact that 6 months have already elapsed. Therefore, you are only left with 6 more months before converting the provisional application into a regular application and filing a PCT application for it. Now that can be done by filing a regular Indian application along with filing a PCT application. Or you can directly file a PCT application, of course, with complete specification claiming priority from the provisional application that was filed 6 months ago. From there, you can again provide details, the timelines which is there to enter national phase application in other countries. So with this, we have covered most of the use cases. I hope these use cases gave you some understanding and hint about how do we decode such questions and how do we create storyline for our answers. Remember, create a model flow chart so that you know what are the steps required for filing an application and what are the timelines associated with various actions which happen at the patent office from filing till the grant of the application. I'll see you again in the next part of the video where we discuss few use cases around the post-filing stage of the patent application. Till then, be good and take care.